Yeah, hi everyone. This is Raja Mitra of from Digital CRM. I have with me here Subhamay Chakraborty, and as mentioned in the event title, the session is about the basics about getting the maximum bang for your posts in social media networks. This is also being live cast on YouTube, and we invite anybody watching on YouTube or joining this room. Watching on YouTube, you could send us in your questions. You could key in your questions. You'll find a link on the live cast for keying in the questions, and time permitting, we will try and answer, if not all, at least most of the questions that you may put in. So, having said that, let me start off by uh, sharing with you the subtopics, for today's uh, discussions, and I'll just uh, share with you the slides which show you the subtopics. Here they are. This is the title of the Hangout on Air, and these are the subtopics. In case they're not clear, I'll just try and read them out. Uh, we're talking about the art and science of social media, a coverage of some qualitative aspects pertaining to social media, as particularly with reference to two major networks we'll be covering today, which is Facebook and Twitter. We will cover the other major networks like maybe LinkedIn, Google Plus, maybe Pinterest in a session which we'll plan subsequently. We will talk a little about content management and content marketing, and then go on to the objectives and goals which typically you must have in view for either an individual post or for posts, on pages or on corporate accounts.
Rajesh, sorry for the
Yeah.
interruption. That page didn't come up yet. Can you just check once?
The you mean the slideshow?
Right.
Oh, okay. 1 minute. I'll just kind of get back. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Uh, okay. Yeah, let me start over again. Is it visible now?
Yes, it's very much visible.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So this was the title of which you all would have seen as the title of the event, and I was just covering the topics touched on, which you possibly would have heard the audio, but here they are. So I'll carry on from where I had stopped. So after the first three topics, we will cover the fundamentals of an effective post or a tweet that is in Facebook or Twitter, both for individual posts or tweets as well as for corporate pages and accounts. We'll talk a little about organic reach versus what happens when you promote or you boost a particular post. We'll talk about what are the key parameters or some of the basic parameters for effectiveness, and also about hashtags. What is the origin, what is the use of a hashtag, and so on. And finally, we'll talk a little about just a few productivity tools and apps for social media. So that's the subtopics. I'll just go on to having done this, I'll just go on to the first subtopic and cover that in the next 3 or 4 minutes. After which we can get into a discussion mode and questions and so on. But if you're viewing this on YouTube, keep your questions coming. We can see them as they come in, and we'll try and answer them. We intend to try and field questions about a subtopic at the end of that subtopic, typically, and then move on to the next subtopic. Okay. See, this is let's talk a little about uh, what traditional advertising. I mean, you're all familiar with traditional advertising in say print media or in television and so on. But there's been traditional advertising also on digital media for for a while. The problem with traditional advertising, be it in print media or in the first screen or in television or even in digital media, is that increasingly there's been a phenomena called ad blindness, which means that people have become they've become indifferent and they've become impervious to these ads. As you notice, for example, if you're watching a game or and so on, people often mentally switch off. Sometimes they physically go off when the ads come on in between, say, overs or in between when there's a break on, while a movie is being shown and so on. So marketing messages effectively, therefore, have been losing their effectiveness as a result of this, and they weren't kind of getting the attention and getting the recall that they once had. Now, this being the case, let's talk about, I'll give you a little overview first about what content management is all about. Now, content management is a fairly wide area, and there are quantitative aspects, there are some very technical aspects about content management, which include, for example, the use of filters, search, how do you index content, how do you store relevant content, how do you archive it, how do you retrieve it, and so on. We are not going to cover those aspects today. Our coverage today is mainly about the qualitative aspects of social media and about content management and marketing. Now, content marketing, as you can see here on the screen, this is a very simple, precise definition, and I'll just read it out. It's basically earning the attention, trust, and business of your audience through producing and sharing valuable content that meets their needs. I would stress on the words attention, trust, and value addition, valuable content, which meets the needs of the audience. Now, these, I think, are terms you must have often heard, but these are very key to any content that you want to be effective and you want to be noticed and seen and read. Now, moving on, how do on social media engagement, be it for an individual post, be it for a post on a page or a tweet, is all about building relationships. And relationships are, so there are some discrete steps in building a relationship. As you can see here, some of those steps are you first go and establish your network, which means you search for the right kind of people or the right kind of profiles or the right kind of segment with whom you'd like to communicate and engage. Now, that's very key. There are sheer numbers may not mean anything much, because in most cases you are not addressing the universe. You are looking to pitch your product or your service, and I'm talking, of course, from a corporate point of view, for a page or for a corporate account, at a particular audience. So you must go and look for that audience, and there are ways you could look by location, by demographic, by profiles, by maybe backgrounds, by experience, and you could have whatever filters that you decide on earlier, and then go and try and build up that audience. The point I'm trying to make is that sheer numbers, you'd often find people banding around numbers saying that I have 10,000 people following me and 20,000 people following me. Now, if out of that 10,000 people, 9,500 are not the target segment or not among the target segments that you are aiming at, they're sheer numbers, they're meaningless. So you search out the relevant segments, and then the approach, which means that you start engaging them, you start reaching out to them, and start building a conversation. Now, social media is all about conversations, and I'd here like to make the point that it is not about merely posting ads or posting, company promotional material or posting ad content, or maybe a nice visual which shows your product and service and so on. Now you do that, of course. I'm not saying you don't do that, but this has to be mixed with, interwoven with, content which is of interest and relevant to your audience, and which is not necessarily hardcore marketing or sales content. Because if you do that, then after a while people would consider that as spam, and they'll possibly switch off your page or switch off your corporate account, and then you have lost that guy forever. So the approach is you reach out to them and you start a conversation on topics of which may interest them, and then the third aspect is that the consistency of your message. So you can't have messages which are not consistent. So you can't have, if you have decided on a particular approach, on a particular interest graph, your messages have to be consistent with that interest graph. I mean, today you can't talk about, for example, say, I'm just advances in the world of medicine one day, if that is one of your interest graphs, and then talk about maybe the current movies in town the next day. That's complete inconsistency. So your messages have to be consistent with your interest graphs and what you think your audience would be interested in. Then finally, after that comes visibility. So you become relevant to people. And how do you become visible? You become relevant by engaging with them through help, through service. Now, service can be defined very broadly, but service can be of many kinds. Where possibly once you get yourself in a position where they're willing to take your advice or your suggestions on some aspects, you could do that. Or if they have a problem pertaining to your product or service, you could address that. So there are many ways. We will not get into the details because all this is the subject of a very detailed kind of workshop and so on that we do. So we are not getting into those here, but you get the idea about visibility. And next is about engaging people, which we have been talking about, because social media interactions are all about engagement. Which, of course, again, we'll touch upon later. But for example, one of the first fundamentals of engagement is that if you are posting and you see very little engagement there by way of people, say, either liking your post, or in case of Twitter, say, retweeting your post, or commenting on your post, or and so on, then you have very low engagement, and that is something which should alarm you. So once you have all these elements right, comes the aspect of doing business, or as you can see from the graph below, delivering the product or service to the customer. Okay, a little bit about fundamental definitions about the kinds of media and the terms that we use. You have owned media or owned properties, you have earned media, you have paid media, and then, of course, you have social media. Now, very briefly, owned media is stuff like, for example, your digital properties, which could be your digital catalog or your website, your microsite, your blogs, etc. Okay. Paid media is essentially the media that you've paid for, which could be advertisements on Google, ads in say social media networks like Facebook or on Twitter, display ads or paid ads, paid endorsements, which appear about your product. So that is paid media. Earned media is where you have your audience with whom you build trust and so on, where you have your audience kind of sharing, or carrying a link to your site or to your page or to a particular post across, maybe on their site, maybe on their page, maybe in their blog and so on. So that is earned media, very briefly. And of course, social media is social platforms rather. All this is of course part of social. But social platforms is, the ones that you know of very well. Like, today we are talking about Facebook and Twitter. but then you have YouTube, you have LinkedIn, you have Google Plus, you have Pinterest, and so many others. We're also talking of blogs as part of social. So these are briefly the descriptions about owned, earned media, paid media, and social media. Okay, so we will stop here at this point in time, and before we go on to the next thing, and possibly kind of get into take in any of your questions or discuss this a little more before we get on to the next portion, which in fact Subhamay will initiate from here onwards, the next subtopic. Okay, so yeah, we're back. Any issues, Shubhamoy, or anything that you'd like clarified, or anything that you might want to ask at this point in time?
Yep. So a basic question. I mean, if I am maintaining a Facebook page, for example, what type of content should I share there? That's a common question, possibly. But how do I strategize my contents for my company Facebook page or my personal Facebook page? How do I do that?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a very good question. In fact, that question actually leads to the next subtopic. If there is any other question, we could discuss that, or else I'll move on to the next subtopic. Which would answer this question as well.
Okay, we can do that also.
Okay. Shall I? Yeah. Let me kind of get back to the slides we were using, because that would be a good visual aid. Okay. Yeah. So, is it visible, the slide?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. All right. So I think part one is that if you have a company page for a product or a service, or an agency is kind of doing a page, and this could be we're talking about a page on Facebook, or an account on Twitter, and whatever. We are restricting ourselves to Facebook and Twitter mainly today. So the first starting point is that you should have a social strategy. And your social strategy must be in sync with your organizational, your departmental, and your team goals. Now, I think the commonest thing that pages or corporate accounts are used for are to market a product or service. But aside from that, there are many instances where pages are used, for example, for customer support, customer service. They could be used at times for maybe HR. They could be used for corporate communications. So you have to define what is the primary objective of your page. And for large corporations, you could have multiple pages instead of cluttering it all up, where you're cluttering up, say, marketing messages and customer support messages and so on. You could have multiple pages as well, which is all part of your social strategy. So once you define the social strategy, you need to get down to the tactics, and which, like we were talking about, identifying the audience, building the right audience over a period of time, finding out interest graphs, for example. A simple example, if for example you're doing this, let's say for a healthcare institution, or say a hospital to be precise. One is, of course, you try to your objectives could be to try and get in as many patients as you can to fill up your beds, or for your diagnostic centers and so on. But so of course you would have messages about what makes your hospital services stand out, which could be about the quality of your doctors, the quality of your infrastructure, the quality of your diagnostic centers, the kind of equipments that you have, the kind of care that you take. So those, of course, would be direct messages for marketing your institution. But along with that, you could, for example, if you're a specialty healthcare institution, let's say in certain areas, you could start sharing for your audience information. Say for example, if yours is a cardiac center, you could start sharing information about, say, healthy lifestyle, and what are the precautions people should take beyond a certain age. What are the signs of healthy cardiac routine, or an unhealthy routine? What are the signs which should cause alarm or should cause people to come in? And you could do that in very many ways. I will not get into the details here again, because there are lots of case studies in each of these areas. But you get the idea about how kind of you could draw in your audience, engage your audience, get a conversation started, get them going, and which should then facilitate, once you have this going, and of course to lend credibility. Let's say, stretching the same example, to lend credibility to what you were saying, you could have maybe specialists, known names who are attached to your hospital, talking about these areas, because when a doctor or a specialist or a known name talks about these, it is taken as a very credible source and as good advice, rather than just a layman talking about it. So there are many ways in which you could do this, but these are just some of the ways where you build up the audience, where you engage them, where you get the conversation going, and then you have to arrive over a period of time. Now, this, of course, we won't get into the quantitative part of it today, but over a period of time, you should look at the analytics and look at which posts are being treated how, what is the engagement, what is the ripple. There are lots of aspects that you can look at, and then decide what is your ideal mix. Is it like 40% maybe you're talking about your facilities, your infrastructure, etc., which is very direct marketing, and maybe 60% about these interest graphs and the common interest areas that I was just talking about. But there's no set rule. You could look at it whichever way. Okay. Carrying on the same this thing, you like we said, you got to decide on your target audience, on the location, on the demographics, on the interest graphs, and on the places frequented. I mean, places frequented in case of, for example, if you have a product, and you could focus them on certain retail outlets or supermarkets or what have you, where which they would frequent, which would again depend on their location and or their habits, for example, and this could help you over a period of time using data to decide on which are the retail outlets, which are the points, which are the supermarkets, or maybe the malls, or the neighborhood shops, etc., that you should focus on, and that could decide your stocking strategy and your point of sales displays and so on. So that's of course detailing, but just to give you an idea. One other aspect that you should keep in mind is that see, this is what we call a technographic profile ladder of participation, because in any social media, be it for an individual post or a page or a corporate account or a individual account tweet or whatever, you have various categories. If you look at your network or the audience, you have various categories. Now, one is the creators, which is like, I mean, for example, if you're doing it for your corporate page or account, you are the creator, because you are the person who's putting out posts there on a regular basis. So somebody who's putting out posts is a creator of content. Then you'd have critics, which is typically anybody who's commenting on a post or on a tweet. So that's a critic. I mean, in general terms, a critic doesn't necessarily mean he's criticizing your post, but a critic is somebody who's commenting on your post or on your tweet, or engaging with you, replying, responding. collectors and joiners are, okay. To give you a very quick example, somebody who's kind of resharing your post or maybe retweeting, etc., are people who are kind of collectors and joiners, because they are taking your post and they're sharing it with their kind of their network or their audience and so on. So that's then you have the spectators, which also are known as passives, which means that people who just absorb content but do not react. So they do not generally post comments, or they do not generally engage, but they are interested in the posts, in the content that you put out. So they are like the spectators. And finally, the inactives, or which is you have to be careful about, because these are guys who have possibly just opened an account, and and it's like a dormant account in a bank, who rarely visit their account, or who rarely look at the news feed or the tweets coming in the streams and so on. So these are as good as guys who are not there. I mean, they just have a presence, token presence, and so on. Which is why, just a little point here, when you look at the statistics that social media networks put out, you'll find something which is stated as a MAU, which is typically monthly active users. Now that's the measure of active users, which means that people who don't have an account, or who have an account but who don't even come in once a month or maybe once in 2 months and so on, are as good as not there. So that is really not an audience. Okay, so yeah, finally, sorry, getting back to the last point which I missed out. There's a you have to like we showed in the Venn diagram before and so on. There has to be an integration between social media and earned media, owned media. So I mean, that's again part of detailing on content marketing and management, but just mentioning it. Finally, on these are just sharing a few general guidelines for people who are authorized to post, or for a corporate page, or for a corporate Twitter account. A few simple things like you need to stick to your area of expertise, like we said. You need to be consistent. You need to show respect to your audience. So don't get aggressive with them. Don't abuse them in any way. Don't get into controversies with them, because you're not there to discuss controversies. You're there for a specific objective. You have a goal. Responding to comments timely. If there's a comment which begs a response, which demands an answer, do that ASAP, rather than doing it after a week or 10 days and so on. That's a sure way of telling your audience that you're not interested. Respecting proprietary information and confidentiality. So you need to have internal guidelines and so on about what you can share on social media, what you cannot share, and what you can share when. For example, if you have a product launch which is imminent, now the product has to be formally launched before you can carry that information on your social media page. You cannot preempt the launch and carry information. It's a good idea always to disclose company affiliation. Now, this is an area which many people don't do, but that is, it hurts your credibility, which is why if for example, you are an individual, and this is typically say on Twitter, because on a Facebook page, you are mostly maybe posting as the page itself, as in the name of your company. But you could also post as an individual. Nothing stops you from posting as an individual on a Facebook page or in a corporate Twitter account. But if you are a part of that organization, it's good to indicate very clearly, either as part of your Twitter handle or as part of your the Facebook name and so on, that you are part of the company. That you're not a stray individual. You're not an outsider who's doing this. And then, of course, you need to follow the codes of business conduct. And one last golden rule: and this is again typically for corporate pages and posts. When in doubt, do not go ahead and post. Check with people, check internally, check with your maybe colleagues or your bosses or whoever is authorized to give a clearance before you post. Okay, because please understand that when you're posting on behalf of your company or your agency or whatever, you are broadcasting to the public. And what you have to be very careful about what you broadcast in terms of your company information and whether you have the necessary clearances or the authorization to say that at a point in time. Okay, so I think that covers the content marketing and in a fair amount of detail. And we'll now kind of get back to the regional hangout and wait for any questions or any issues that you might have. We still have questions and answers enabled, so anybody viewing could key in a query, and we take on the query and we would answer that.
Yep, Raja.
While we are waiting for that, Shubhamay, we can continue our discussions.
Yeah, possibly I will ask few questions, and we can keep discussing on that. The hangout was about getting the maximum bang out of social media posts. So I would like to start with the very beginning. That like, what are the attributes of an effective post? How do you define a post which is going to be viral and all? What are the components of an effective post on say Facebook or Twitter?
Oh, okay. We will. I think that's a good point, and we will come on to that next. Just a point here. There is no set formula, for a post going viral, but and a lot of people have tried this. It's like saying that is there a formula for a movie becoming a blockbuster success? And even the best of movie makers are find it very difficult to define what is going to be a huge box office success and what is not going to be a success. But while viral is something which possibly kind of happens only once in a while, and you can't quite like we said, some of the basics that we talked of before, and a few other basics which we are going to talk of now would ensure that you have a fair degree of engagement and on a post, and so therefore say the number of likes on a Facebook post, or the number of say retweets or engagements or comments on a Twitter post are indicative of what kind of attention you are getting. You can see, for example, how often it is being reshared, and together with analytics, you can see what is the effect of that reshare. And okay, there are a whole lot of other areas which we don't want to get into because we'll run out of time. But for example, you need to, if you see, there are people who are, I mean, this could be individuals, this could be other companies and so on, who are known as prime influencers, for example. Now, I'll take an example. If you happen to be, say, an IT services company, and or an IT products company, for example, and if you have a post of yours or a tweet of yours, which say a Microsoft or an Apple, or even a Oracle or somebody picks up and shares or retweets, now that's fantastic. That is fantastic, because you may have an audience of maybe a few thousands, but a Microsoft or or an Apple or Oracle would have on their Facebook page or on their Twitter account an audience of several hundred thousands. So imagine the impact it has when they pick up your post or tweet and reshare it. or even the fact that and there are of course many other areas, like we're talking of tags, hashtags, etc. We don't want to get into too many of those details, but to answer some other part of your question, let me again get back to subsequent kind of the issues about what constitutes an effective post, and get back to our slides again here. Okay, is it visible now, the slides?
Not yet.
Oh, is it? Okay. All right, 1 minute. Okay, now?
It's there.
Visible, right? Okay. So this is a graphical representation of some facts that you should know about, and this applies both to a Facebook individual post as well as to a post on a page. This an organic reach, which means that if you do not do anything for a particular post on Facebook, what percentage of your audience, which means what percentage of people who are following you, on Facebook or Twitter, or who have liked your page, get to see it. And as you see, the percentage is dismal. It's if you have, say, an audience of a network of 100, on an average, a post is seen by only 6 out of that 100. So it's a 6% organic reach or visibility, and this is by design, of course, because Facebook is a commercial organization, and they would like you to, and particularly if you're a page or if you're a commercial entity, they'd like you to spend money and boost the visibility of your post. Now, there are several ways of doing it. We'll come to that a little later, but this is just to give you an idea, saying that there are people who think that I have an audience of say 1,000, and so therefore anything that I post is visible to all those 1,000. Now, that is not the case, and for example, if, like we talked about the various categories, now if out of those 1,000, for example, you have, say, maybe 200 or 300 who are either bots. That means they're not humans. There's some algorithm or the other which is observing your page or post for certain content, and to extract certain content or to check out certain content. And if they are inactives, that is people who have an account and maybe at some point in time kind of clicked like for your page, or click follow or whatever, and then hardly ever visit Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and hardly ever see your content. So you've got to eliminate those. Now, even out of the rest, your visibility is like 6%, which is something that you need to take note of.
I think that's an
Okay.
important point. I mean, many of people ask that I share a lot of posts over Facebook page, but some of my friends don't get to see that. That's very important point, that only 6% out of the total population gets to see what we share on the Facebook page.
Absolutely, absolutely, and then for example, people sometimes could, that has other ramifications, because people sometimes could wonder, saying, why am I not getting any engagement? I have done all the fundamentals that you talked about before, but where is the engagement? Now, the point is that for example, if you have, out of that 6%, if you have a higher percentage of, say, people who just who are kind of just readers of content, who normally do not engage, who are passive guys, and so on. If you have that, now just imagine, where would your engagement come from? Let's say if you have an audience of effective audience of 500, and 6% out of that 500 is already kind of, it's like 30. And out of the 30, you have passives, you have so on. So your effective guys who are going to engage with you, as you can see, would be very low. You are essentially talking about maybe a population of say 20-25% at best who could engage with you. Now that is not which means that your reach is that severely limited, and which is why, if you just think that doing organic posts all the time is a good way to reach out to your total connected audience, it is not. So that's the point I think to be drawn from this.
I think one more important point is getting the right audience in the page. So if you have bought certain audience in Facebook who are not at all connected, then you are getting 6% out of that. So possibly you might not get any benefit out of those posts. So those are all these points are related to somewhere each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there, and so it is you have to, which is why, again, going back to what we were saying, you have to have your strategy, your audience, your your tactics all very clearly laid out. And like any marketing or any effort, be it sales or marketing, all this does not happen overnight. It builds up over a period, and engagement, trust, credibility, audience trust, all this takes time to build up. So if somebody is like looking for very quick results and saying, all right, I started a page today, and a month later I should start seeing some big results out of that, or visible results out of that, it's not going to happen that way. Okay, for the viewers, any other questions, viewers? I mean, are you able to? We have enabled the Q&A function, so you should be able to kind of key in questions, and if you can see, we can see your questions as you type them in, and we can answer them. Or if you want to, if you want to kind of join in, come into the room and kind of participate and be seen, be heard, participating in this discussion, asking questions, you're most welcome. Okay, so while we're doing that, we will move on to the next area, and Subhamay, would you like to maybe take on an extension of the next area, the next subtopic that we have been talking about? We can just get back to the slides that we had, and I think that should.
Yeah, if you can share, I can take through.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Here we are. And
yeah, so this is interesting. So people often ask that how come a certain post goes on top of the chart and some posts get lost. So what is the algorithm that Facebook applies to choose which one to be featured on the top of the list or which one to be hidden? So there are certain rules. I mean, we'll not get into the exact algorithm, and then that's not published also. But the basic concept is this, that there are certain affinity part. So while you make a post, it tries to find out what is your relationship with the viewer. Based on that, possibly that post will feature on his or her timeline. Also, there are certain types of posts which are given more priority in Facebook. For example, posts with photos are given higher priority. Posts with video embedded are given higher priority than simple text post. But those are details of that. You can find out yourself, but you can also get in touch with certain experts to understand which one is getting more weightage in Facebook. Another point is how long the Facebook post remains in circulation. So sometimes you may see that some post comes up from the date and suddenly it crops up in your timeline. So there is an algorithm there also that a Facebook post will decay over time, but there are also ways to boost up your older posts which has gone into death, but you can bring them up as well. So there are techniques and tactics around that. So overall, Facebook has built up certain algorithm, and that also changes over time. But if you want to make a successful post in Facebook, you need to keep these things in mind. That affinity is one point, weightage of the post based on the type of content, and how the post will be remain. I mean, how long the post will remain in circulation.
Yeah, if I may just supplement, what Subhamoy just mentioned. Uh, Facebook initially started off with an algorithm which they call EdgeRank, which is the name that you see below. But EdgeRank had certain basics which still hold. But what has happened over a period of time is that there have been these algorithms, and we're just giving you a general picture, but these are tweaked and they're fine-tuned, refined, changed, modified, many times in a month. And this is an ongoing, constant process based on news feeds, based on data that they have. They're looking very closely at large data sets of what kind of interactions take place, what kind of engagements are happening, and so on. And together with that, of course, they get a lot of user feedback, and they often you'll find them soliciting user feedback. So all this goes into tweaking of the news feed, and of course, for a page and so on. It is also, one of the objectives is that today you'll find that you have a lot of handles, for example, on Facebook or even on Twitter, where you can block certain content, you can indicate that you don't want to see much of that content, and so on. So those are user controls that you can use. A few of the very basic initial EdgeRank rules you can see in the right column, written in red, and they are basically, I'll just touch on them. Their affinity. Now this affinity means your relationship with the user, which means how much he or she interacts with your page. So the higher the affinity, the higher the visibility, and conversely, the lower the affinity, the lower the visibility. Weight, which means that certain post types. So posts which have videos and photos get higher priority. I mean, that's like a basic rule, but of course within that there are many tweaks and many other refinements. But this is just like a rule of thumb, a basic EdgeRank algorithm. And I think, like Subhamoy already mentioned, this decay. Decay is that how old is your post? So the longer your post has been around, the less likely it will show up in your news feed, in anybody's news feed for that matter. I mean, your network's news feed. So as you can see, the visibility cycle of a post is fairly limited. Okay, so I think those are some of the basics there. Okay, I stop at this point because there could be some discussions or questions that you have. I think these all pertain to the central topic about how to get the maximum bang for your post. So if there are any questions or discussions, we'll just do it at this point in time before moving on. Audience, any questions? Okay, Subhamoy, any further points that you think we should discuss with regard to this?
Yeah, I mean, possible question can be that how can a tweet become most effective, I would say. So how do I make my tweet more visible to others? Is there any rule to that?
Yes, see, there have been a lot of empirical studies, and there's a lot of material which is available on this. But for example, social media networks are evolving and changing and adding features and functions so rapidly that even this changes. But okay, just to get back to the central question and a very basic thumb rule, somebody, I think I was seeing a recent study where somebody kind of went through about 4 million tweets and did an analysis. And some of the empirical stuff which came up was that typically tweets which are a tweet, you have a character limit of 140, but tweets which are 120 or less were seen to be more effective. Now, there are several reasons for it, which the study went into, but some of the reasons would be that, for example, when somebody is retweeting, or you have the facility of using that tweet as a quote and adding your own text or adding your own brief comments and so on. So, or even for retweeting or reposting onto some other network and so on, 120 just leaves a little space for the retweeter or the sharer to maybe put in some content. Of course, there are other factors, in terms of visibility, engagement, attention spans, and so on. So that was one aspect. The other aspect was that, again, this is true both of Facebook and Twitter. Posts with visuals always have higher visibility and engagement, rule which you can kind of keep right firmly at the back of your mind. Use visuals, which is why you'll see that over a period of time, both Facebook and Twitter have done a lot of things about visuals. Visuals could be photos, like we said, visuals could be videos. Today, Twitter allows you the facility of directly recording a video on your smartphone by, you could directly record it there from one of your smartphone cameras, or you could share the link to some existing video on YouTube or Vimeo or whatever. So visuals is very key. The third aspect which is coming up is, you see, for example, and this is particular, Twitter has the facility. See, each tweet has a unique URL. And because each tweet by default, unless you have changed your settings, each tweet is public. So a tweet, you could capture the URL of a tweet, and you could share it within a tweet. So here is a tweet where the link is the link to another tweet, which is pertinent, of course. So these are some of the techniques that you could use. But don't overuse them. Don't cram too much into kind of one. The other thing is, of course, hashtags, which we will touch on in a little while. Usage of appropriate hashtags and so on increases visibility, engagement, searchability, discoverability. So these are some of the aspects that you could do that. Even on Facebook, and remember, typically. There's a term which is used often, an acronym, which is known as TL. Now, TLDR typically stands for too long, did not read. Okay, so a post, even though Facebook over the years has increased the length of the post, or the number of characters or the number of words that you can put in a post, it is never a good idea to have too long a post, because do not mix up a post with a blog or or an article or whatever. If you have to kind of write an article or whatever, maybe use a blog. Use a link to a website where this article or piece could be there. Link to a blog, link to a magazine, link to whatever. But don't don't cut and paste, for example, all that content into your post, even though the word limit may allow it. But don't do that, because that is not conducive to high visibility or high level of interest or engagement. So there are a whole lot of issues like that, which would define also, how visible is a post, how what kind of attention it draws, what kind of engagement therefore happens, and so on. Have I answered your question?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, shall we then carry on to the next subtopic?
Yes, we can. So I just shared the slide of that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I
Yeah.
think
Sure.
that
Go ahead. Go ahead.
some of the questions that people ask is, can I do some planning of the Facebook post, or can I do some planning of posting same thing across networks? So to answer to that is, there are certain tools available for this. So we have listed few popular ones like Hootsuite, Buffer, Friends Plus Me. There are pluses and minuses behind that, but the idea here is you can plan the post. For example, if you are planning for some events, you can plan some posts across multiple platforms. You can also target certain audiences, but don't overdo that. So typical case is, if you are planning too much in advance and certain incident happens in between, possibly your planned post may not work out, and that may bounce back to you. So that's the little bit on that. You want to add something on that, Raja?
Yeah, see, these are productivity tools, and these productivity tools are typically for social media workers. That is, people who are actually doing the posts for the company or for the organization on a regular basis, and so on. And the idea is that you know see, most people who are onto social media now, social media is something that possibly your regular salesperson or your customer support person or the concerned maybe manager is doing himself or herself. Now, in many cases, it's that is not their full-time assignment, because they may be doing their regular work and they may be devoting maybe an hour a day, say, or half an hour a day or an hour a day to posting on, say, Facebook or Twitter or whichever network. So therefore, that is where these productivity tools come in useful, because see, there are a lot of factors. Now this depends on your target audience, location, geographical time zones, and so on. And you can get analytics about when, at what time of the day, in a particular region or location, or for your target audience, is the post most visible. So, I mean, that depends on the nature of your target audience. I mean, to give you a very simplistic example, if, let's say, people, if you're looking at a lot of working people on a work day, now, a post at 9 or 9:30 may not be very visible, because that's when people are just getting to work, and they have, all the pending stuff and all the, firefighting to do and all the schedules to happen and so on. So maybe a post which pops up at 9 or so may not have much visibility. And as we said, the visibility cycle or the life cycle of a post is fairly short, because the older the post is, the less visible it gets, as we said. So therefore these applications like Hootsuite or Buffer or whatever, they allow you several things. One is they allow you to post to multiple platforms. Now, imagine if for example, you have been tasked to, say, put out a post on Facebook, and, say, one on Twitter, maybe the same post or a different post on Twitter, and something else on maybe LinkedIn, and something else on Google Plus, and so on. These could help you do that. So you could, it's like a social media assistant. So you could put in multiple posts there, and you could either use their auto schedule function, or if you want to fine tune it further, you could do the scheduling during the day. I mean, depending on your target audience. So you could say, all right, here's this post, I'm putting it into your basket, and put out this post on Facebook at, say, 11 a.m. in the morning, and put out this next post at, say, 3 p.m. in the afternoon. and put out this post at say 6 p.m. and stuff like that. And you could do that for multiple networks. So you could do the same for Twitter and so on. And that is why these are productivity tools. So you could do it all together. Maybe you could spend half an hour or 1 hour in the morning doing this, and then you could get busy with your other work. Meanwhile, this will continue, spreading out your posts onto different networks at different times of the day automatically after that. Just a last word on this. Friends Plus Me is, we will not touch upon it right now because Friends Plus Me takes as its origin posts in Google Plus, and that is only public posts in Google Plus. And then, from there it could cross-post to Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever, and so on. So that's what Friends Plus Me is. Okay. Yeah, we are on to hashtags, and maybe Subhamay, would you like to take up about hashtags and maybe explain to the audience, what is it and why is it used and what is its effectiveness and so on?
Yeah, sure. So hashtag is pretty popular now. It's now supported in almost all the platforms. It started getting popular in Twitter, but later on Facebook also picked up and they have also started using that. But mostly hashtag has been popular into Twitter. It's more for tagging to a certain trending content, or to group your post around one theme. So for example, if you go to Twitter, you may find out what are the trending topics for the day. And if you want to search on those topics, you can get all those collected together. That's one purpose of it. You can also create your post with those hashtags, which can be pretty personalized. For example, you can create a hashtag for your own event. So suppose you're starting an event and you can create a personalized hashtag and everybody starts using that. So there are multiple uses of hashtags. I would stop there, and I would only say that hashtag is pretty powerful, but not all the platforms use it to the fullest extent. Twitter is the best place. Possibly Google Plus is also pretty active on that, and Google Plus has a feature where it automatically creates some hashtags. I would stop there because we can go hours after this topic. So, Raja, your thought on that?
Yeah, no, I think I'll just add maybe a couple of minutes on that, and then we'll move on, because hashtags by itself has become a huge thing. See, to give you a bit of interesting history on hashtags. Hashtags, as Subhamay just pointed out, originated on Twitter, and it originated on Twitter in the early days because when Twitter first started, the search function in Twitter was very poor. So people, if people use the search function on Twitter, they were unable to find, the content that they may have been looking for, which is the relevant tweet or the tweets and so on. Which is where somebody started using hashtag, and because then hashtags became a way to, when you put the hashtag in the tweet, and then people started telling people, hey, if you want to search on this particular topic, use this hashtag. So that is how it started, and that was the very simplistic way hashtag started. But of course, see, beyond that, hashtags now have become a very effective way of, there is so much of volume today on social media networks. There's literally, many gigabytes and much more of kind of billions of tweets and Facebook posts and whatever, which are happening every day. If you look at the numbers, they're mind-boggling. And hashtags is a way of indexing. It's a user-generated way of indexing content. So if for example, if you have a topic and you want to index it, so that people can get onto it easily, hashtags is one very effective way. It is also an effective way of increasing engagement, like we were saying, because like you were saying, there are the most popular hashtags are shown as trending on Twitter. Facebook hashtags came on much later, and Facebook hashtags came on as a response to, first it was on Twitter, and then Google Plus got into hashtags, and then of course Facebook followed, and so on. And Facebook hashtags are catching on, but they have been a little slow to catch on because. But you'll see on Facebook also you see trending topics and so on, and then hashtags are becoming effective. So hashtags is and okay, the beauty and the danger of a hashtag is that since it is completely user generated, you have no control really beyond a point, because for example, if somebody for some reason, maybe for reasons of mischief or any other reason, were to start using the same hashtag and generate either content which is not relevant or pertinent or whatever, there is no control that you have over it. I mean, you could maybe block it or whatever, or if it is abusive content, maybe you could report it. But those are extreme cases. So a hashtag is actually a very it's a very user generated kind of way of quickly indexing, archiving on those aspects. And you'll find today hashtags are I understand on TV networks and all that, people are pointing to hashtags saying, all right, go to social media, use this hashtag, find content on this. So, and there are of course ground rules on don't use, for example, too many hashtags in a tweet. That is distracting. Don't use too long hashtags. These are of course when stated, they're fairly commonsensical, but that is how it is. Don't use too long hashtags. People sometimes virtually write out a sentence in a hashtag. And as you might have seen, a hashtag is it's a stream of characters with a hash at the beginning, and no blanks and no breaks in between. So if you write out a sentence, you're effectively for the rest of your content, you're effectively cramping your space and cutting out so much space. And then of course a long hashtag is very difficult to share and kind of remember and stuff like that. So there are thumb rules and a lot of golden rules which govern hashtags, but these are some of the key ones. Okay, so that I think brings us to the end of our slides and so on. But of course, any questions, any other further clarifications, questions, whatever that you may have at this point in time, and try and answer them before we wind up this session. Any viewer questions or any audience questions on any of the stuff that we covered? Subhamay, any particular other aspect which you think has not been touched on or needs any other clarification?
I think we covered pretty much. So unless there are questions from the audience, we can.
Yeah, I think there are no pending questions that I can see further from the viewers. So that being that, I hope this has been maybe informative session and useful session for some of you who've been seeing it. And of course, the live cast will be stored on our channel, on the Digital CRM channel, as a YouTube clip, and it can be viewed at any point of time later. We do workshops where we get into details of some of these aspects and in a lot of other details, and some of these workshops are very detailed, and they could help you kickstart your social media campaign in your organization and so on, because we are of the view that social media is done best when it is done hands-on internally by the respective departments and by the respective people, be it in sales or marketing or customer support, rather than just handing it out to an external body or agency and so on. But all right, those are aspects that we cover separately. So if there are no further questions or clarifications, we'll round up this session. Thank you very much for joining in and listening in, and thank you all for asking and making this helping make this a lively session by posing questions and so on. We plan to have more such sessions on these on social media and a few other topics. So do watch out for forthcoming events on our page in Facebook and Google Plus and on Twitter. Thank you very much.